A game that comes out that meets and exceeds the expectations of the players. It blows our minds. It's so good, but for some odd reason, it doesn't meet the same expectations for games media. Our interests aren't aligned. Our perspectives are not necessarily the same, and there's conflict in that. And I think that Black Myth Wukong is one of those games. And don't get me wrong, the game reviewed very well. It got over an 80 on most review sites. But with that said, up until the game's release, and then even after the game's release, it was under a constant barrage of negative criticism that had nothing to do with the game whatsoever, and in that, the game never really got a fair shake, at least not in my eyes. Now, 2024 has been an absolutely insane year for games. There are so many great games to play, and if you're one of those people that are out there that are like, gaming is dying, let me be the first to tell you, you need to play more games, or just not the same ones over and over again. The list, once I get into some of the Game of the Year contenders, it's going to blow your mind because I honestly forgot how many games even came out this year. This isn't about the award. It's about the recognition that these studios deserve, the reward they deserve beyond just making money. It's making sure that it's known why these games are great so that other publishers and studios can see, hey, this is what it is. This is how we make a game that the players love. And it's not, again, just not the money. Already, I'm starting to see games media want to preemptively push back about Black Myth Wukong being in the Game of the Year category, and we're going to talk about that. It's candidates. We're not even mentioning the stockpile of games that were scored just under that, with titles like Stellar Blade, Black Myth Wukong, Tekken 8, Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth, Unicorn Overlord, Space Marine 2, and more. 2024 has been packed with games, but only a few titles are deserving of being crowned King of the Year, and for many players, that game is Black Myth Wukong. James Throtton of The Gamer penned an article titled, "If Black Myth Wukong isn't nominated for Game of the Year, fans are going to be insufferable." James writes, Black Myth Wukong is a very good action game, taking the Souls-like formula and stretching it into a boss rush format. Its popularity even surpasses that of its inspirations, garnering millions of players in mere days. It's a genuine contender for the Game Awards, but with how stacked 2024 is shaping up to be, competition is fierce. Polygon recently updated its Game of the Year frontrunner list, while the Golden Joystick Awards announced its 6 nominees for this year's PC and console Game of the Year categories. Black Myth Wukong is nowhere to be seen outside of smaller categories, and so TikTok right now is a deluge of angry gamers declaring that games media is corrupt and that it's all a part of some wider conspiracy. The game was not rigged from the start, it's just been a very, very competitive year. This week alone, we've had Silent Hill 2 Remake, Metaphor ReFantazio, and Dragon Ball Sparking Zero, 3 critically acclaimed hits that are all vying for the spotlight with equal fervor. Earlier this year, we saw the launch of Astro Bot, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth, Tekken 8, Helldivers 2, and Dragon's Dogma. That's not to mention the stellar year it's been for indies. Black Myth Wukong, while good, we scored it 4 stars, just doesn't measure up to the greats. Hell, it's not even the best Souls-like this year, as that award goes to Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree. For those that have used Wukong as fuel in a culture war since before it was even released, its absence on these lists is an attack. It's a ploy by games media for reasons, even though it has an open critic aggregate of 82. As to why it deserves to be nominated, it sold well. James, I will speak for those that you are arguing against. Black Myth Wukong doesn't deserve to be nominated because of its sales. It deserves to be nominated because it is the first ever release from a studio, an inexperienced studio, that made a stunningly gorgeous game with great combat, a compelling story, beautiful music, incredibly detailed and culturally accurate environments, some of the most unique boss encounters I've seen in a game like this, and themes that we don't often see in games. It was original, fresh, and most importantly, fun. And while many of the games that were mentioned in this article are information, get their keys and their codes, and make sure that they can hold on to their jobs and their relevance, but on the other end, when it comes to some of these smaller studios and publishers, they desperately need the help of games media to be able to be noticed, to get in the front of the eyes of players in the first place. Get their trailers out there, get some articles written and things like that, get them in the algorithms and whatnot. And I think that some of these journalists that are out there view that as an opportunity for them to throw their weight around. That's where they get to be the bully this time. They get to push everybody else around and tell them the way that it's going to be. And I think that Black Myth Wukong stood in opposition to that, and they didn't like it too much. And it might not be all of them. I'm not going to say it's every single one of them. There's some damn good journalists that are still out there. I know you guys are probably shaking your heads. No, there's no way. Believe me, they exist. I have a few of them that are out there that are some of my favorites. But with that said, I think that's the case here for Black Myth Wukong. You know, it's not about sales and it's not about scores. It's about fairness and image. And I just do not think, under any circumstances, that Black Myth Wukong was painted in the same colors as some of the other games that we've seen this year. Even games that had controversy. Palworld, I mean, that game got absolutely shredded by Games Media. They hated that game even though the players liked it. But even still then, I don't feel like the game got dogged on this hard. Going back, Helldivers 2, they went through their entire controversy. Games Media didn't even want to touch it. They didn't even want to talk about it. They just brought it up slightly and then walked away from it. Just let the gamers be mad. And I think the reason why is because they just didn't see it from our perspective. They didn't care to see it from our perspective. Which then brings me around to this idea that when it comes to a game like Black Myth Wukong or maybe even like Space Marine 2, probably less so on that one, I think that there are some writers, some journalists that are out there that see that these games are being used in a culture war, that they are diametrically opposed to whatever the side of that culture war is, and they do not want to give them a win under any circumstances. And that does affect their review at the end of the day. They don't want to hand that over to them. They know that they're going to use it as ammunition against them, and they're never going to hear the end of it. And as a result, well, points get docked, the image of the game gets smeared, and this is the result that you get. I don't know if that's going to be the end result of all of this, but it looks like it is. One thing the reviewer, the writer, did get right, there's a lot of games to be vying for a spot as Game of the Year this year. A lot of games deserve it. We've had some awesome games release, and there's still more that are right around the corner. Stalker 2 is, I think, next month. We just had Call of Duty. Black Ops 6 just came out recently. That game got reviewed really well. It did really well. The players seem to really like it, which is crazy for a Call of Duty game, but I mean, stranger things have happened. So who knows? Maybe there's something else that's sleeping in the wings that we don't know that's going to come out and get a bunch of 10s and 9s. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Make sure to share the video with your friends. Make sure to like the video if you enjoyed it. Comment down below what game you think is going to be Game of the Year or what game you want to be Game of the Year. And yeah, outside of that, my friends, stay cool, stay righteous.